So yeah, that's what happened, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah, not much you can do. Drop
Nope,
back 10 and punt.
that's right.
That's all you got. You got your choice. It's fourth down. You can punt or you can play. What you gonna do? Two things. Pick one.
Um, go to the hot dog stand and get a tall
That that's
soda.
that's a third thing that's not an option.
So what's going on?
Well, first of all, welcome aboard the Trampled Underfoot train. It's Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Trampled Underfoot time. I said that already. With
Yes.
your hoists and hosts, for those of you who can speak, your hoists, Eloy Escagedo in Miami, Mark Lindsay somewhere in Southern Oregon. And what's going on? Oh man, it's hot. I know you say Miami is hot, and it is hot, but it's hot here too. Other than that, not a whole lot. How'd your 4th of July go?
It rained. There was explosions, but not at the frequency that we usually like. It usually goes on the whole day or evening into the night, way into the dawn, into the morning, yet dark. And then the next day they have leftovers and they do that. And then for a week or two after, people are spending their cash um, of fireworks. But this time around, it seems to me with the all the things like the plague, the bubonic plague, the economic ensuing situation, people stuck at home, the fact that we had a tropical storm, impending doom, a collapse of a building, just a series of things. I think that it depressed our 4th of July.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I can see why. That's a lot of things happening all at once.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring up 4th of July, and this was one of those things we were talking in the green room before we went live here about how we never seem to have a topic, and I thought of one while we were talking about it, and this is it. I have mentioned before that we seem to be in an old people's cul-de-sac, which I think is the definition of a cul-de-sac, a circular street, occupied by old people. But yeah, 4th of July, I don't think I've seen that many kids in this neighborhood ever. I mean, there were a whole passel of kids out there.
Really?
And families with fireworks out at the end of their driveway there on that little 6-foot buffer that defines this is the end of my driveway and that 6 feet out there is the street so I can do whatever I want. I mean, Linda and I sat out in our gravel driveway. We didn't have to buy fireworks. Everybody on the street was out setting them off. And I mean, kids were running and ripping and tearing and having a great old time. And it was actually kind of fun watching all that stuff go on because I haven't seen that in so long.
I don't want to sound like a negative, a Nelly or whatever. But okay, fireworks are cool. But me personally, I hate to say this, but just to be on the honest, I don't want to hear fireworks. I don't want to hear sirens. I don't want to hear explosions. I don't want to know I don't want to see people knocking at the door. I don't want to see people even walking close to the perimeter of the area. I don't want to hear what I want is nothing. Literally, I'm not, and I know it sounds like a negative thing, but I enjoy non-external things trying to knock at my,
Twice a year. You can't tolerate twice a year to go outside and watch the kids have fun.
I can't tolerate it.
We're talking 4th of July and New Year's is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can tolerate it. It's just, but I'm being honest. Like if everybody could just stay in their houses and like leave my ears alone and my just everything. Like I like Placid.
Mm-hmm.
I like Placid,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean
I think I'm with you 363 days a year, but I think 4th of July and New Year's, when people go nuts, I'm kind of reactivating my ability to go outside and enjoy it.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
you have. I mean, you have a good disposition. Um,
well,
I'm more of what was that Mister something from Dennis the Menace?
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. I'm a little bit more, and I hate to say it because I always watch that and I always think, what a stick in the mud. Look at this guy. But you know what? The more and more as time goes by, I'm like, yeah, this guy is totally on point with like everything, dude.
Well, usually I agree with you, but even Mr. Wilson would cut a rug every once in a while, you know. So, I mean, and if you'd have said this to me last year, I'd have been exactly the same. Oh,
Yeah.
come on, knock it off with the fireworks. You're scaring millions of dogs in the neighborhood. And I mean, we had dogs that were afraid of fireworks. We would have to tranquilize them.
Yeah.
You go to the vet, you get a couple of happy pills, give them to them about an hour before sunset, and they were out like a light. So we've played that game. We've done that. Well, those dogs have passed away since then. It's just her and I. We don't have any more pets. We can actually go out into the cul-de-sac and watch all these kids having fun. And trust me, I can say this as a guy whose, youngest child is now in her 40s. Holidays are about kids. And that's all there is to it, because they are absolutely not the same when you don't have kids in the house anymore. We don't put up a Christmas tree. My wife, Linda, knitted a Christmas tree. It's about a foot and a half tall, something like that. And it's green. She put little ornaments and tinsel around it and crocheted a star for the top. And she sets that up on the bookcase, and that's our Christmas tree.
That's cool.
But we don't have kids in the house. We don't decorate for Halloween. We don't do any of that stuff. So I got a little taste of what it was like to light fireworks for kids yesterday, watching our next door neighbor do it for his kids, and the people across the street doing it with their kids, and just all up and down the block. And it was a lot of fun, I got to admit.
Yeah, I you know what? You're right. But I'm not. I am kind of a little bit of a Grinch, but not. I mean, I'm lowering the brightness of my because it's overpowering. I've got this huge monitor that I'm, and I had to raise. I was watching a movie the other night, and this has been going on for like the better part of a year, where when I watch, and Greg can attest to this, because vampire movies aren't the best well lit, movies, and for a year now, every time I'm watching like a zombie thing or something, I'm like, man. These freaking directors and filmographers, they sure did film these things dark. And like the other night, after like a year or something, I said, oh, wait a second. I on purpose lowered the darn brightness of my TV so I wouldn't. And then I had the bright idea of raising and sure enough, I could see the night stuff perfectly well. But like for this application where the screen is very just bright and white, it does affect. But anyways, well, yeah, you're right as far as happy, being cheerful and whatnot.
Don't give me too many accolades, because July 5th I reverted back to my old ways and became Mr. Wilson, wondering when these people were they all swept their spent fireworks into the gutter, and now I got stuff blowing around. I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac and it all blows into my yard, and guess who has to pick it up? So I reverted back to type. It's like, it was fun 4th of July Sunday night. Well, now it's Monday morning. I got the morning after blues because all your crap is blown into my yard. And who's going to clean this up? Me. Get your crap out of my yard. So I went back to being that guy. I'm that neighbor now.
I mean, it is what it is. Oh, by the way, so my name for this evening, because we have, for those listening through the podcast over on Spreaker or directly through our YouTube, through our website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com, where you can catch our past episodes. If you're listening and not watching, you can also watch here on YouTube every Tuesday evening, and that goes live at 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific time. So you can go to our Trampled Underfoot Podcast YouTube channel as well. But my name for the night, because we have these little sort of tags you can add, is Too Much Fabric Softener. And in the green room before the show, I was talking to Mark, and I said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to tell you what this is about." And said, "Okay, yeah, we'll save it for later." I just wanted to just get that out. The other day, I went to Walmart, and as you know, it's a pretty swell place to go and acquire items that you need and that you don't need.
Exactly.
And I got myself some soap for, liquid for washing my clothes and stuff. And I came home and I put everything away and this and that. And so I started doing batches of clothing. And I didn't take my glasses with me. But long story short, I bought a whole tank of frickin' fabric softener as opposed to clothes. What do you call it?
Laundry detergent.
Laundry detergent. And boy, it's been like 4 or 5 days now. And my house smells like a bouquet of frickin' flowers. And just earlier, yeah, I know, it's insane. I put on a John Lennon shirt that I have, and we were in the green room, and the smell of flowers it just got me off balance. It's so powerful on me. I mean, it's fresh to the touch, right? But it's so overwhelming. I had to change shirts, and I'm wearing this grungy shirt, and although it's dirty, it feels so much better on me. In fact, I've got the shirt here. It is back here. It's sitting back there, and I can smell it from here. This shirt here. It says John Lennon, or is it? It's this Imagine. Oh, I don't know if you can even see it. Whatever. There it is. Imagine. So that's my story, dude. And it's horribly overpowering.
Time to go get you some more laundry detergent and rerun that load.
Oh man, yeah.
The reason I'm sitting here laughing about that is because I know what you mean about overpowering aromas like that. I was probably, let's see, my brother was 4 years younger than me. So I was probably 10, maybe 9, 10, something like that. So he was 5 or 6. Yeah. And he poured an entire bottle of my mother's favorite perfume on the dog.
Ooh, dude, that's bad.
I know it's bad.
The dog must have gone ape shit.
The dog went.
Sorry.
The dog did go nuts.
Sorry.
And my mom went nuts. My dad went nuts. That poor dog got bathed, I don't know how many times, with every kind of remedy you can think of, because this is pre-internet, man. We're talking like, oh, good grief, 66, 67, something like that, 68. So, well, no, it had to have been older than that, because I was 9 or 10, so we're looking at 69 or 7. It was 68 or 69. So pre-internet, and we're going through all these different folk remedies and trying to get the smell off of this poor dog. We finally thinned it down enough to where we could stand to be in the same house with him.
Oh, he must have been exhausted, that poor creature.
Oh, my brother got his tail end tore up for that one. Number 1, for using up all of mom's favorite perfume. Number 2, for putting it on the dog. And number 3, for coming up with those ideas,
Boy, dude, that is pretty extreme. Because remember, they have an incredibly sensitive olfactory.
Oh yeah, and this was not a case of the dog was like this for a couple hours. This was a case of, what's that smell? What's going on? Dad come trucking down the hallway, and there's my brother putting it on the dog, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Dog outside, get it rinsed off now. And poor dog got so many baths, she never wanted another bath after that.
Oh my goodness, dude. That is a pretty bad. Growing up, there's a cologne / perfume cologne that is commonly used around Cuban circles. It's very old school, let's say. And I don't know if there's there probably is an equivalent. But what it is you'll have these huge bottles of, say, violet water, they call it. And it's called violet water. And it's purple. And it's a watered down, cheapo cologne / and they usually, when you wash the kid, they can put it on the hair, and the kid smells like a bouquet for a couple of hours, and it's just a watered down but powerful, cheap cologne.
Now, is this just for kids?
No, adults use it too. I remember it. So growing up, it's the sort of thing that growing up, they would douse me with that and whatever. And I didn't think much of it until I started to see other families using that same product and say, oh, it's not just me. It's a whole community thing. Because, you don't pick up on things you pick up on certain things, but you think that, oh, this is just, some sort of strange, my family type thing. Yeah. For some reason, the purple gigantor bottle of frickin' violet water
with the handle molded into it so you can carry it.
But no, it seems to be a communal thing. And then as I grew up, I realized it was and whatnot. But that's what they would. And my dad used to love Old Spice.
So, yeah, I was getting ready to get into that. But you said the adults used it too. Was it men, women, or both?
To be perfectly honest, I think it was for both, but don't quote me on that. There was a transparent one where it's just transparent, and it was and it would say 1800 on it. So it kind of looks like some sort of like
tequila.
Yeah, or some sort of rum or something. And so they had that too. But I remember the purple. I mean, it was just purple liquid. It looked like freaking the same stuff you'd buy to clean your floors and stuff.
That's funny. Yeah, my grandfather on my mother's side, it was Old Spice and nothing but Old Spice. Deodorant, cologne, everything. If he could get soap, he'd use it. And with my father, my grandfather on my dad's side, it was either Aqua Velva, or there was another one by Menon, Skin Bracer. Menon Skin Bracer for use after you shave with an electric razor. I don't know. And they had that advertising campaign about the skin bracer toughens up your skin, like you're going to be deflecting bullets and stuff with it.
That's funny. I've never heard of. I've heard of the other ones, but never that one that you're saying.
From Menon, skin bracer, aftershave and cologne.
Brute was a big one too. In my junior high, all of a sudden you had to take showers after PE, and it was it mandatory in your junior high?
Yeah, for us, junior high and senior high, both in PE, you took a shower. Yeah,
I did not like that. Well, I mean, you've been through the army and this and that, but
but not when I was 12 or 13.
Well, no, I'm an only child. I didn't. What the hell is this whole thing about having a bunch of guys in the same darn communal shower? I found it, just like this is, and you're walking. And by the way, another thing I didn't like. These are things that I wouldn't like it now, to be honest with you. I mean, unless one for some reason had to, but I mean, what the hell is that? You'd have to walk on this tiled floor where other people are walking. And I found that pretty disgusting. I know it's being washed and this and that, but I don't know it's not like you're at home showering. And just the whole thing with, and then the little lockers and freaking, a jerk to your left and a jerk. I did not appreciate that.
You didn't wear the rubber flip flops. In fact, we called them shower shoes.
No,
we wore the rubber flip flops until you got to your position under the shower head. Then you kicked them off and you got washed up, cleaned up, kicked them back on. No. Rinsed them off, kick them back on, and then go over, to your locker, dry off, get back in your street clothes and what have you.
No.
Oh man, yeah.
No, but the whole thing,
we were required to get them. They called them shower shoes, and that's what I grew up calling them, was shower shoes, and then suddenly flip flops.
I mean, I get the point. But in elementary school, we did pee like fiends, monkey bars, running around the track, the whole thing. But we didn't shower at that. But all of a sudden, now you're in junior high, and now, all right.
Fourth graders stink, and that's all there is to it. When you're in elementary school, you're expected to stink because you're going to run around and play on the monkey bars every recess anyway.
Well, in any event, during that time, in the locker room, there was always a kid. I never brought my own cologne and stuff. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even thinking in those terms. Like, this is all. I was always rebellious in every respect. And always questioning everything, even as a kid, always everything. I question it ad nauseum, everything. It's just, it's how I am. And it's unfortunate for some people. But there were people or kids, friends of mine that would bring, their parents would stuff their book bag with a cologne. And it was always Brut. And they'd pass around the Brut thing, and kids would, dabbing. It was like flooding yourself.
Yeah.
And we'd walk into, like, let's say the next class, could be like typing or whatever the heck it was. And the whole room, the teacher, everybody was like, wanting to yak and stuff. It was so overpowering. I remember that very well.
We had, I never took cologne. But my mother insisted, and my mom was a prude, and she didn't want, bodily smells were just something she didn't want in her house, except the obvious ones that you can't control. But if you smelled like you didn't take a shower when you got home from school, you were in trouble.
Really?
Once you got into junior high school, you take a shower after you get done with PE. Well, Mom, I don't want to hear it. You take a shower. Well, you get on the bus with a wet head. Then you ride on the bus with a wet head. Well, okay. All right. But she got me Menon Speed Stick because you will use deodorant. So I was okay, fine. And then when I got into high school, I started using Right Guard. But it was a case of you will smell decent when you walk back into this house. I don't want no stinking kids walking in here. And I'm like, what about on the weekends? We're out playing. You don't make me shower then. No, but you shower before you get into bed. Well,
and but the whole, in my junior high, the darn PE teacher would give points because kids could decline not showering. And I did on many occasions. Sometimes my towel smelled worse than I did. I was like, I'm not going to shower and rub this towel on myself. It's been sitting in my freaking locker all this time.
Well, yeah, I had better bring the towel home. And that was another thing. The towel got washed after every use. Well, and I still do that to this day. I wash the towel every use.
So every use, huh?
Use it once, it's dirty.
So, you're clean when you shower.
Understood, but I don't want to put my face where my butt was yesterday.
Dude, if you wash properly, you can eat off your butt.
Well, if you feel like testing that theory, let me know.
See
what I'm saying.
I
am not going to put my face where my butt was yesterday. So I use the towel once and it goes in the dirty clothes.
You see, You know what? See, I hit you with something very normal and this and that, with a little bit of craziness to it, and you come back with that horrific comeback.
You started it. You could eat off your butt. Yeah, that's
Well, you're
really
right.
nice and normal. No, nobody would ever take anything from that. Why would you take something from that? No.
Well, okay, so point taken. So you do that. But so now you wash the tap.
Sure.
I mean, it's not the strangest thing in the world. I get it, but the opposite of that, you could go for whatever time. But now, if something's been bundled up inside a junior high locker and it's been sitting for a week, festering, you don't want to. You don't.
You don't.
So here's the thing. Sometimes I would say, "No, I'm not," and then the PE teacher would show you, and he'd give you the point, and you'd be like, "What?" And if I had the brain that I had now, I would have let him fill up the whole darn thing with points. I don't care about your stupid point system, dude. Go ahead and point system yourself to death. But as a kid, you're like, "What? You're adding a point?" And so
Yeah.
and so just silliness, dude. It's silly. I don't know what I don't know. The whole thing was ridiculous in my opinion.
So it was Brute for your friends was the
Yeah.
cologne of choice. Now, when I got into high school and we got, I got, obviously interested in girls and got wanting to date and this, that, and the other, Brute was one of them. Because Brute was, I won't say it was new, but it was still fairly recent. But for some reason, the musk colognes started making the rounds.
Okay.
And English leather musk was
boy.
the one that the girls that I hung out with, that's the one they liked. Because,
Wow.
I wasn't wearing that stuff for me. I was wearing it for them. I didn't care.
Is English leather? It smelled like a belt, right?
No, English leather was just the name.
I remember that. That's still around, actually.
It's still around, yeah. And so is English leather musk. But the funny thing is, so I used English leather musk a few times when I was in high school. The funny thing is years later, turns out Linda likes it too. So every once in a while I wear it for her.
Okay.
So, but thankfully I missed out on some of the nastier smelling things. Did you ever see any ads for High Karate?
No.
It was called High Karate cologne, and they had shampoos and then soaps and the whole ding dong thing. They were some of the most ridiculous commercial, and the whole thing was based on, if you put this on, you'll be fighting the women off, doing the High Karate.
Oh,
BS
I see.
crap.
I see. Yeah.
And that's what they called it. Smelled like, I can't tell you what it smelled like, but it just, everything about it just screamed cheap. It just screamed, we came up with this, we can't figure out what to do with it, so we're going to put it in the bottle and it'll become your problem when you give us $1.50 for this thing. So oh my God, it was bad.
I mean, a little bit. So the idea is that a little bit goes a pretty darn long way, because you're not trying to announce your arrival to the whole convention center. You're just trying, anybody that gets close, they get a little bit of a scent, and it's a pleasantry, and it enhances the experience. But for a long while there, I mean, that concept, I just went for broke.
Well,
it's pretty crazy as a kid.
I fell into the advertising hype. Women like a guy who has a nice smell, a nice style. And so it's like, oh, okay. So if I use that, women would be more approachable. I will be less offensive smelling. Okay, cool. There were other guys that needed to be taught that lesson. Their dads didn't care or something, because it's like, no, dude, you don't understand. Right guard is to be used after a shower, not in lieu of a shower. You can't just, this is not your Pinto. You can't just spray another coat on it to hide all the mistakes, all the earlier mistakes. It's for after a shower. So, gosh,
That's
because you smell worse if you're just putting on another coat.
well, certain combinations would actually bring out not only the bouquet scent, but also the offensive. It'll coalesce into this new hybrid odor that carries. It's kind of like suspended in.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It's like it's like you know what? It's like a cat tray full of the what do you call it? The tray, I don't even
the kitty litter.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, here you go. The rocks smell good.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
But the one I never understood, I can get trying to make some things smell better, but the one I never understood was scented toilet paper. Why would you make scented toilet paper? It's the only thing in the world you don't have to make smell nice, because it's gonna get messed up. It's gonna get screwed up.
It's gonna get really screwed up. Let's be honest here, folks. You call it. How screwed up is that toilet paper gonna get? You tell us.
You don't have to make it smell nice. I mean, just forget it. Paper is an okay smell. But it was all an attempt to attract women. It was also an attempt to actually appear to be older than you really were. You wore cologne because, well, number one, most of us didn't shave. We didn't have anything to shave. So, it's aftershave was kind of a, you're only kidding yourself. It was kind of a moot point. Why bother? So a little bit of cologne here and there, and then only on special occasions when you're going out for the weekend, or you're going out with a specific girl, or going out to meet people, or doing whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was fine.
My dad always, tell me if this is the same for you guys. My dad always said, and son, you always take a handkerchief with you. And for a kid in the 80s, you blow your nose and never blow your nose. I think we've talked about the blowing your nose. But always take, like, whenever going out, something a little bit, it could be on a date. It could be, he always said, son, you always, and a big thing here was for your birthday so they would give gifts like everybody does. But there were certain gifts here that a kid in the 80s, or maybe a kid at any era would not be too, it's like, so they'd give you like something like, oh, look, they bought you a tie. And you're like, oh my god, like you're like, or here's socks, and it's like the special, and then you're looking at, so for a kid, socks are like, you put them on because they're that's what you've been taught to do, but I could go with or without socks. I'm a kid. But one of the weird things was, I'll just wrap up with this one, was a rectangular box, thin, with perfectly folded handkerchiefs. And they'd give you that. And you're a kid and you're looking at that thing and you're like, the heck am I going to, what am I going to do with? So handkerchiefs,
Yeah. Well, and I'm willing to bet you that the socks came from your grandmother, didn't they?
From aunts and such.
Okay.
And grandmother as well, many a times.
Grandma you always got socks and underwear from grandma. I don't know what it was. I did anyway. I got socks and underwear from my grandmother on my mother's side. So it's like, okay, because of grandma, my feet and my butt are going to be covered. So I'm set. The handkerchief thing, I never had a suit to where I needed a handkerchief in the pocket or anything like that. I never had a suit until I went into the Army and got my first Class A uniform. I just didn't own a suit. And I never got the handkerchief talk. I don't know. Nope, never had but I did get the belt matches the shoes talk. Don't
Okay.
wear a brown belt with black shoes, and don't wear a black belt with brown shoes.
But wait a second. Did your parents or did your father
That
and
was
your
my dad.
grandfather? Well, no. What I'm saying, did your father and or grandfather or both have handkerchiefs around with them all the time?
My dad carried a handkerchief in his back pocket. Yeah.
Exactly. My
And
dad
I
did
always
too.
thought that they were disgusting. So I never carried one.
Okay, but it see, well, that's where so there were things that were like sort of like little, I'm sure, little leftover nuggets from a bygone era where people. So I don't carry a handkerchief. However, if my dad were around today, he'd always have a handkerchief in his back pocket.
Yep.
My grandfather, born in 1911, handkerchief. I
Yeah.
remember it as if it were yesterday.
Yep.
Always a handkerchief.
We have boxes of Kleenex strategically placed around the house, and so I don't have to worry about it.
You know, it's one of those things.
Yep.
For the ladies, I remember, and I don't know if this is but talcum powder was like a huge thing. Just that's another gift. I don't know about you, but in our circles, um, people would gift a little tub of talcum with like little bars of soap.
I have only recently, and we're talking in the last 3 months, I have only recently discovered the joys of talcum powder. And I'm here to tell you, it does help. I'm enjoying it. I'm luxuriating in it. Yeah. Because I'm outside working. I'm working in the shop. I'm working in
Yeah.
the shed. I got my portable air conditioner jerry rigged in the shed today. And I'm a happy guy. I'm a very, very happy man right now. But trying to work out there in that and the other, I found out, I discovered that a little bit of it's just, I think it's Gold Bond medicated powder, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
It's
Just a little bit
refreshing.
under the arms, a little bit down, the insides of the thighs where your pants rub.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a total difference. And I'm like,
Yeah.
now I get it. Now I know why people like this stuff. Because
Yeah.
I've become a fan.
Yeah, I grew up with, and that was a thing. People would, you dab some talcum powder. I mean, and not just women.
Yeah.
Of course, it's kind of a. I do remember that the canisters. In fact, I still have one from back in the day. It's still sitting, left here from my grandmother and whatnot. Perfectly fine, sealed in a thing. But I remember the little soaps. This you probably didn't have in your area, but it would be a Spanish woman dressed in a very traditional thing with like the head thing. I don't even know what it is, but like in Spain, I know they wear like these for like some celebration, and it drapes like a very traditional 1800s looking and with like a little those fans that they'd open up, and on the bar of soap.
Uh-huh.
And it was a flowery red and black colors to it, and then the lady, and it always went with the talcum powder. I don't know what the heck was going, but that's one of the most common things I would see.
Well, now
that.
My mom used the talcum powder, and she had the powder puff and the whole thing, and the soaps and this was a couple of things that always bugged me. We had a little glass. It looked like a woven basket, but it was glass. It was molded to look like a woven basket and had a little gold bail over it like a handle. And there were little individual soaps about the size of not quite the size of a dollar coin, maybe a $50 coin.
Yeah, I know.
But they looked like roses.
Yep.
And they were of different colors. And there would be a bunch of those laid up there.
Yeah.
But you couldn't use them.
I remember that too.
Don't use those. And then over on the towel bar were the good towels.
You don't use those either.
Don't use those. Those are for company.
Yeah, same here. But if you were company, and you went to use a bathroom somewhere and you saw those towels and you did the same thing you would at your house where those aren't touched, I don't know about my family, my parents, but I would look at those towels and say, somebody broke that rule and use it themselves. I'm not touching those damn so
exactly.
I'm gonna tell the truth here instead of lie. I would just like air rinse my hands, and the don't ever do this, son, but I did it anyways. Rub your hand on your pants on the sides, and your hands are
Yep.
dry.
The first, well, it wasn't the first time. It was probably 10 years after I moved out of my parents' house. I came back home, visited my folks, and we had dinner and this, that, and the other. And I went to the bathroom, got done, washed my hands. I turned around and I grabbed that towel off of the towel bar and I dried my hands, and I made a show of walking out, drying my hands on that. And my mother, don't use that towel. That's for company. And I looked her in the eye and said, what am I? I'm company. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Drop out in Miami. Well, I'll do my little tap dance here.
I'm back. I don't
Now
know what
he's
happened.
back. Okay. I don't know what happened either.
So she said, don't use that towel.
Don't use that towel. That's for company. And I said, what am I? I'm company. I don't live here. And I kept drying my hands with it. Mark, you give me that. She snatched it out of my hand and put it in the dirty clothes hamper. Probably the first time it'd been washed in a year. But the other one said, no, it's for company, and I'm company. I'm going to use it.
A lot of things from back then, like, shoe horns.
I have a shoehorn and I use it.
But you have to agree that it's something that when I think of shoehorns, I don't think of nowadays necessarily. I think of like, I remember my grandfather, he'd sit on the side of the bed and he'd have the shoehorn and he'd put his shoe in and he used and I remember saying, and these are things that as a kid, I would just force my foot into the shoe.
And stick your finger down back and pull the heel back up over your heel.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I got too old to bend over and do that. Now I have a shoehorn that's got about an 18-inch handle, and I just reach down and slip my foot into my shoe, pull the shoehorn out, go to the next shoe.
Well, see there. So I'll be revisiting the shoehorn then.
They did just some of the things that the old folks in my life used that I thought they were silly for using. It's just become, that's why they
standard.
Did that. Where has this been all my life?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and there it is,
you're getting old when you get too tired or too lazy to tie your shoes, and then you just want Velcro or slip-ons. I mean, I still have my logging boots that I have to lace up, and I have my Merrill outdoor shoes that I wear when I'm working that I still have to lace up. But anymore, if I'm going to go downtown, I got a couple of pairs of shoes that are just slip-ons. So grab the old shoehorn, zip, next foot, zip, and I'm gone. I ain't got time to be tying no shoes. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's just a pain. So,
another thing you don't see, and I'm sure it exists, but you don't see people using, what is it? Penny loafers. I don't see people using them. As a kid, I remember, I don't know if it was my grandmother, but probably. My mom comes in, look what maybe my grandmother got you. And she opened up a box and she produced these shoes with the penny loafer where you stick the little penny in and whatnot. And I looked at it and said, what the heck? And I found it a little bit too gilded for the era. It looked like something from the 1920s in my mind as a kid in the 80s. And I was like, well, no, I want Reeboks or Converse shoes. I'm not thinking. And she's bringing these fancy with a brown, leathery, reddish, leathery tone, and I'm like, and she says, no, you and you could put a penny in there.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and the little strap, yeah.
I don't want to put a penny there. I don't even want to wear these shoes. I was like, oh my goodness. So, and yet that's what you had to wear. So,
well, if you get rid of that strap where you put the penny in, that's kind of sort of the slip-on shoes I have now. I don't have the little strap, but it's just, they're fine. I had one pair of wingtips in my life. But most of the shoes that I wore for most of my life were tennis shoes. And that's what we called them. We didn't call them track shoes. We didn't call them running shoes. I mean, sometimes we called them sneakers, but more often than not, it was just tennis shoes. You know, I wanted moccasins. The moccasin craze hit hard when I was about 10. So we're looking like 1971, something like that. Moccasins and desert boots. They hit hard in the Bay Area. And I wanted desert boots so bad I could damn near taste them. And Mom wouldn't get me desert boots. She'd, nope, you're going to be too rough on them. You're just going to tear them up. I ended up with tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Now, she did relent when it was the mountain boots, hiking boots, but we called them waffle stompers because the soles made like a waffle pattern when you walked in the mud. And I mean, those made the rounds when I was in like 6th grade, and everybody had to have waffle stompers. And she looked at him. She goes, yeah, you ain't going to tear them up. So
those were good to go.
I outgrew them, and my brother ended up with them. So, but oh yeah.
That's hilarious. I mean, those are certain things, but you don't see penny loafers necessarily anymore.
Not really. I don't think I've seen a pair of, well, I can't really say that. I used to sell real estate. So some of the older clients and some of the really older agents, I mean, we had agents in their 80s that were still working. They wore them on occasion, but never with a penny in them. But you could look down and you could see, penny loafers, huh? You like those, do you?
Let me ask you this, and I think this is good to get on record in my mind. So from my grandfather to my father to me, my grandfather would wear his pants at the belly.
Okay.
The belly button. My dad and I would wear the belt. Basically the belly is hanging over the pants
around the waist. Yeah.
Around the waist is where the belly's at. Your waist is actually, you look at your belly, and that circumference, whatever that might be, folks, we're not here to judge. Whatever that's actually the size of your pants. I found it just not, and people didn't do that in my growing up. And my dad, although they did do that, but my dad would wear it below because it's so much more darn comfortable.
Yeah, I always wore them. Okay, waist, I misspoke. I meant hips. I always wore down at the hip, so my belly stung over or hung over the top. When I developed a belly, because believe it or not, I used to always be a skinny kid. First time I went to join the Army, I'm 5'7". I weighed 119 pounds. They were like, no, you're underweight. Go home, put a couple bricks in your pocket, and come back and see us when you've gained a little weight. I weighed 119 pounds. And my mother's nickname for me was Mr. Bones. So
that's crazy, dude.
Yeah, I know. And now I'm over 200 because I don't care how I look. but I always wore my pants low like that. I did wear a belt. If I was going to be out doing a bunch of things, I even wore suspenders, but those were they had real wide suspenders for, holding your pants up and for clipping tools too and what have you. But, it was always just more utilitarian. I've been a blue jeans and t-shirts guy forever. But I quickly learned in the cabinet shop, in carpentry out on the job site, the shirt was always tucked in because you were always worried about getting it caught on something, scaffolding or a nail here or a nail there. But when you got into the cabinet shop, you always untucked the shirt because, at least for me anyway, sawdust would go right down the collar. And if you got your shirt tucked in, you will spend the entire day itching like a son of a gun. And if you start sweating, it's a major problem.
Yeah.
So at the cabinet shop, the shirt was untucked to let everything fall through. but on the job site, it was tucked in. Why I
Yeah.
came up with that, I have absolutely no idea.
No, it just where the things that one would wear, and in the different in the different scenarios that one finds himself in, the sneezing in public places, the handkerchief. It's just something that people did, but good luck now finding someone with a handkerchief. And oh my goodness, could you imagine? Excuse me, sir. I know you're dining here and stuff, but might you happen to have a handkerchief?
Napkin off the table and head for the bathroom. There's always a public bathroom nearby.
There's certain things you don't share, right? That you don't
exactly
loan out.
We're talking about where you wear your pants, down on the hips or up around the belly. That's where the kilt is measured from, and that's where the kilt is worn. It's worn way up high. The buckle of the belt, when you wear a kilt, should cover your navel.
Right. That is the correct way. I mean,
that's the correct way to wear the kilt.
Your leg pants and your legs, it all evens out, other than the fact of like weight considerations, which is why a lot of people just go for, and not even that, even people that might not be overweight or slightly, whatever the case might be. Nowadays, I don't see people wearing. If you ever see those the old footage of all the 50s musicians, they wore it. Elvis, if you look at his footage and stuff, you'll see that he wore those pants right up to the belly button, and that's just what they do. And somehow it looked proportionate. But when I do it, I just end up looking like I don't know whether it was, which one was the Laurel and Hardy, which one was the
Oliver Hardy, the fat one.
Yeah, and I'm like, this isn't gonna work. Try going out in public wearing your pants to your frickin' belly button nowadays. See what happens.
Well, now I think, and I find this to be especially true in the UK, not so much here. I mean, guys here, they kind of stop around the navel, but over in the UK, they just keep, the older they get, it just keeps going higher and higher and higher. It's right below your nipples when you're in your 80s, you know. If they live to be 100, they're looking over the top of it or something. I don't know. But and I don't know where they get those pants. It's like, it's got to be pulled way up and the belt cinched tight to keep them up. And it's like, dude, are you okay? Can you breathe through that thing on?
Another thing, and you tell me. Oh, you never told me. Did you? Whether or not your dad, your granddad wore it at the... No, you did tell me. At the belly.
Yeah.
Or
my
below.
Grandfather on my dad's side was a lineman and climbed telephone poles for a living. In fact, he's the one that's told me that you don't know the meaning of the word pain until you spend the weekend on the houseboat with your feet up on the rail, getting the soles of your feet sunburned, then climb poles for a living. He was an alignment for the electric company, and he wore his pants down at the hips, same as me. Okay. And so did my grandfather on the other side. So did my dad.
Interesting. So nobody
wore the pants way up. Grandpa on my mother's side was a carpenter, and he was all about comfort. In fact, he's the one that got me my set of suspenders, because that's what he wore at work. He wore suspenders or bib overalls. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I started looking into bib overalls for all this work I'm doing outside. Bib overalls are great for utility. I just don't know, do I want to make that final leap into old manhood? Because I think bib overalls and red flannel shirts are for old guys.
Yeah, but so there is a comfort factor there and utility with it. But the problem with, I hate to be shallow, but depending on what your surroundings look like, if you wear that, like say in Miami, you're looking for trouble, because that is such a country, type of look that people, I mean, it's just not done. But in reality, it's freaking comfortable. I've owned them in the past and stuff, but I and they're comfortable.
Yeah, I live in a town of 7,500 people, so bib overalls is like just another day that ends with Y.
You,
I mean,
you
you see bib overalls around. I mean,
not here, not here. I
you
mean,
know,
in the 80s and
uh-huh.
maybe sometime in the 90s, early, girls
Well,
used to wear the whole little, there was like this whole little style that had that look.
yeah,
I don't know if you
you're
remember.
right. Yeah, I do.
And which it was an
But
adorable
but
look for women,
but they wore the bib overalls with the cut off legs and then rolled up.
yeah.
So
And
I'm not talking about that.
and they would, well, I know you're not talking about. I'm not. I'm not. And maybe do something with your hair, and then the whole packet. I'm not trying to go in that direction. I'm just saying that whole style.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? I'm not a kid anymore, and
Yeah.
I stopped trying to look cool a long time ago. I really did. And my wife can tell you that I've succeeded in that regard. I'm a blue jeans t-shirts kind of guy. Half the time I'm walking around the house in sweatpants. If I go outside to work, I've got a couple of pairs of work pants that I put on. If we go downtown, I've got a couple of pairs of go downtown pants that I put on. And that's about it. I mean, my wardrobe you can put into, it's a little bit more than one suitcase, but it's pretty close, But the one thing I do have a lot of, and there's one, and that is t-shirts. And the one thing I must have a lot of are socks, because I'm forever hunting for socks.
Yeah, they disappear.
Yeah, it's a law, I think.
There's something going on with socks that we're not completely abreast. But let me tell you this. It just popped into my head. Back in the day when I was a kid, Michael Jackson really blew up. Like, he was the thing. Yeah. And even as a little kid, I really was just into like the rock and roll. But my grandmother was aware of the popular signs of the time. And one day she came home with a gift. She opened up that box and said, "This is for you." And my mom was there. She said, "Oh, look." I pulled out the Michael Jackson red zipper top with the cut off sleeves, the exact replica zippers that wouldn't really open, but they were there just, and I looked at that thing and it looked like, and the you touched it and it had like this leather, like stretchy leather, and it was the most nightmarish thing. But and she said, "Look, it's Michael Jackson. This is very popular. All the kids are," my grandmother, "all the kids are," and this is a lady that was born in 1911. And she went through the ages of all the different styles, and she figured this is the style now. She didn't take into account the rock and the heavy metal sort of like that angle. She's just saying this is the popular, and of course you want your grandson to be part of the mainstream. And I'm like, no, Grandma. In my mind, I'm a rebel without a cause, Grandma. I'm not Michael Jackson.
You're standing there in Doc Martens with a pair of blue jeans and a Metallica t-shirt going, no.
Well, long story short, and I'm so glad that happened to me and that she did that, and she thought, because I can look back on it now. But dude, I've got pictures of it as well. But dude,
yeah,
it's pretty insane if you think of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thankful that nobody bought me platform shoes when disco came along, because there was a very real possibility. Oh, my mother, one time, she got me a white belt, and I tried it on for her right there, and it went in the back of my closet, and I never touched it again. Well, how come you're not wearing your white belt? Because it doesn't go with my shoes. And you and Dad both said that I have to match the belt to the shoes. And she would accept it. She would accept it.
There's a lot of lessons that they were giving us. I don't mean to speak for you, but I'm stretching here, and I think in a safe sort of zone. But there's a lot of lessons that weren't necessarily detailed out on how to properly do this, how to dress this way, and to be neat and to be cordial, and all these lessons and stuff. And it amazes me how much of that I did the same thing with and put in the back of the closet
Yeah.
and said, and it wasn't until years later that I started, oh, well, that's why they said that, and that's why they said this. Oh, and that makes sense. And oh my, and you start appreciating, but you can't expect with all the current day influence, and that's why kids today, whatever, they have their own influences and stuff.
Sure, they have their own style.
Albeit, I'm quite partial to my experience, but
Sure,
you have to comprehend,
But for the kids out there, let me just say this: grandma and grandpa, and even mom and dad, they mean well. Maybe they don't know, but they're not out there to actively try to embarrass you unless they tell you that. Now, I used to embarrass my daughter real easy just by even saying, well, we need to go get you some new underwear. If we were in a department store, if she was acting up, that's all I had to say, and she would behave immediately, because the most embarrassing thing she could think of at the time would be her stepdad taking her over to the women's department and helping her shop for underwear. That was the most, and she was like, 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah.
That was just the ultimate in humiliation, was her stepdad taking her to shop for underwear. So that's all I had to do was make the threat. I think you need some new underwear. And I mean, immediately silence. And she was right next to her mother, like, Mom, please don't, please tell him not to. And that was it. It worked every time. But they're not out to humiliate anybody. They genuinely care.
Right.
And they genuinely think you're going to like it. They're not out to embarrass anybody.
And everybody's got everybody's got loved ones that they're there. They're trying to assist you in being proper or learning skills, and you might not appreciate it because you're off on your own, whatever it is. Totally reasonable situation from generation to generation gap and this and that. Totally reasonable. But looking back, boy, I wish I would have made certain decisions or appreciated certain things more than I did when they were just things that were happening and just it's just part of the daily routine. And, here's grandma and this is, and we're having lunch here and this and that. And you're like off in your own mind. So it isn't. Let me ask you this question.
Okay.
My grandfather used to wear plaid pants. Just plaid pants. I don't even know where kind of like what golfers would use. And that was the thing. Plaid pants. Not all of his pants were plaid, but he had enough of them. And he'd be off, walking down the street and this and that, plaid pants.
It was a style for a while in the 60s. I don't think I had any. I had plaid shirts growing up here in Oregon, and even down in the San Francisco Bay Area. In the wintertime, it's cold there. You're right on the bay. It's humid and the wind cuts right through you. I wore plaid flannel shirts a lot. And I don't think I own one now. I know I don't have one that fits, but plaid pants were a thing back for a little while.
Yeah.
But I think my absolute favorite pair of jeans that I had in high school was my freshman year and my sophomore year. My mother finally took them away from me because I'd worn them so thin. But it was patchwork. It was pieces of denim that had been sewn together and then pants made out of them.
Like a bohemian type looking.
Yeah. And Mom said, those things look raggedy. She hated them. But she was the one that bought them for me. But that's not how it looked in the catalog. My mother ordered us stuff for school clothes out of the Jewel catalog. Jewel T, some people called it. But she ordered us stuff out of the Jewel catalog or Sears catalog or Montgomery Ward's or Mervyn's on the West Coast. And we'd get this thing and be like, go try them on. Let's make sure they fit. Okay, go try them on. Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. And I fell in love with those damn things because they were different. Nobody else had them. I'm not much of a follower of trends. I really am not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's how many years later, and I'm thinking about just starting to watch the Marvel Universe movies. That's how behind the times I am.
Hey
Okay,
man,
but
it's you, it's you.
but I just thought that those pants were cool because nobody else had them. And it was, you remember the on Levi's, they had the orange stitching. They had the rivet on the pocket to keep the pocket fastened there,
Mhm.
but they didn't have white stitching. They had orange stitching,
I don't
and
necessarily.
all of this patchwork was sewn together with that orange stitching.
Sounds cool.
They weren't Levi brand, but they were cool. I loved it, and she hated those things, and I made it a point to wear them as often as I could. I mean, they'd come out of the dryer and I'd be right there snatching them out of the basket, and on they went, then off to school, you know.
That's hilarious. I mean, so I remember now. I remember wearing the white shirts that you would see. I guess undershirts. You would a t-shirt
Uh-huh.
undershirt.
Yeah.
As just a shirt, and there were a few people that did that in high school. And I remember rolling up the sleeves like they would do in the 50s and so on. I remember doing that as my personal style, and I remember I did that for quite a long time. And I remember taking my jeans and folding the bottoms outward like they would do as a thing. Did you ever do that with the jeans and whatnot?
There was you roll up the leg a little bit,
Like the inside?
on the cuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a style for a while. Then it went from that to all of a sudden you had to have walked off the bottom inch of the back of your jeans. Then you were cool. So
Walked off.
they weren't rolling them up anymore. Yeah, you bought jeans that were too long on purpose so that they hung under the bottom of the sole of your shoe, and you would wear them out walking on them.
Oh wow, yeah.
And you tried to wear that out as quick as you can because everybody wanted jeans that looked old, not with holes in them or anything. Didn't no
But
hole.
used
But
or worn in.
you wanted faded jeans, and if the back of the hem had been walked off basically, then you were okay. And that was for a long time. That was for quite a while. That was from about 73 on to, oh my God, we were still doing it in the early 80s. You didn't roll up your sleeves. You didn't, they were worn off. And when the whole urban cowboy thing came up with John Travolta and Urban Cowboy, when that whole thing got real popular, it became the button up Western shirts. But you had pretty new blue jeans, the dark blue, as dark blue denim as you could get. They couldn't be faded at all, but you still walked off the bottom cowboy style.
Interesting.
And then people who had never been near a boot were suddenly wearing cowboy boots. But like I said, I'm not much of a trend follower. I was a blue jeans and t-shirt kind of guy. In my younger years growing up, it was button-up shirts because t-shirts were undershirts. They weren't outerwear until about the late 60s, and then they became outerwear.
But they did do that in the 50s, right? The greasers, let's say.
Yes, they did. They did, but they usually wore it with the jacket.
Okay, that's true.
And I had Levi jackets as well. I was I wore Levi jackets well into my 30s. But
all right, so
I don't think I have one that fits.
So, are you ready to land this?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to this would be that if you have any of that stuff that still fits you, keep it because it's gonna come back. It's all cyclical, man. Everything will come back, so don't chuck nothing. I wish
Well,
I had some of the bell bottoms I used to wear.
that's a big statement there, because there's other factors that need to be taken into consideration with clothes from, let's say, the 1990s that you once wore, such as, will you
Well,
ever fit into a certain thing ever again?
yeah, to be honest, most of my 1990s, I was wearing a military uniform. So, I only got to dress how I wanted to dress on the weekends.
You did miss out, unfortunately, because it would have been good for you to have a couple of pictures of you in those MC Hammer
Yeah,
parachute
that
pants
just
and
wasn't
such.
going to happen. I mean, can you imagine me in a pair of Cool Jams or parachute pants or cargo pants or painter's pants? Well, painter's pants I might could get away with, but not the cargo shorts or anything like that. I'm just not. I don't follow the fads, man.
Yeah, you take pride in being a
Contrarian.
yeah, well, against the what's the word?
I buck
There's
the trend.
yeah, you go against there's a word, dude. There's a saying. What is it? You go against the something.
Go
What's the
against the
saying?
grain.
That's the one. And see, and it's a woodworking thing, and I'm totally yeah. You kind of like the go against the grain, kind of like this is popular, Mark. Check this out. Mark, you got to see this, man. You got to get involved with this number. And you're like, no.
Yeah, because the more popular it is, the more I know I'm not going to like it.
And with you, it's going to be impossible for someone to use some sort of psychology too, like say, okay, we're going to use the reverse psychology to get Mark to then, like, so you say, Mark, do not, for whatever on this green earth, do not investigate, do not look at this. That's not going to work with you either, in case people are, because you'll sort of like, right?
See, I only have one person to impress, and that is my wife. And we've been married for 33 years. She is the reason I still have the mustache, because she likes it. She doesn't like me without the mustache. So I give in. She doesn't bother me about the hair. I'm worried about my hair more than she is. I need a haircut. I know that. I got to audition a new barber because the place we used to go to kind of went down down the dump. So now I got to find a new barber. I just haven't done it yet. But she doesn't bug me about my hair. She does bug me about my mustache. I shaved it off once, and I've told you this behind the scenes once. I shaved off my mustache one time, and that was because I had to. I was trimming it, and I got it a little bit uneven, and I trimmed it again, and I got it a little bit more uneven, and then I trimmed it, and finally I started looking like, no, shave it off and start over. And she wasn't disappointed.
Don't tell me.
She wasn't mad. She was downright pissed. She sat on the couch with her arms folded.
Because you're a different person now,
down.
Right?
And what's the matter, sweetie? And she just looks up at me and she goes, you don't have an upper lip. And she puts her head back down.
Have you seen those videos? It reminds me of those videos where, like let's say dad, he's got this full beard and this and that, and then the couple has like a young kid, and you've seen it, right? And then they'll go like, and then he'll go shave, and then he'll come out and say, hey baby, hi sweetie, and the girl looks up at dad and she's like, oh no, oh no.
Yeah, the kid starts crying.
Dude, it's so hilarious because I mean it really gives a lot of insight into so much. And they're doubting you. Even when they're little kids, they're looking and they're saying, yeah, you kind of sound like dad, but there's something wrong with you, mister. It's a hilarious thing to see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My dog would give me the evil eye. It went after a haircut, kind of, okay, you kind of look like that guy. You smell like that guy. All right. You sound like him. You must be okay. But I can't imagine doing that to a kid. But I
It-
would like to grow a beard back. But last time I grew it back, it came in snow white, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. So I'll go for a week without shaving, and then I'll shave, and then next week I'll need to shave again. So,
all right, let's land this.
all right, let's land it.
All right. So, folks, we didn't know where we actually. Wait, let me rewind that. We take great care in parsing out all the information and going through our show notes and prepping. And sometimes we're slightly spontaneous and go wherever the wind takes us. That was not the show. We planned every single moment of this.
That's right. We were studying scripts for 2, 3, maybe 4 seconds.
I do want to mention, as I mentioned at one point earlier in this broadcast, that we go live every Tuesday, and that's we go live here on YouTube every Tuesday, and then it goes out every Tuesday. Everything goes out Tuesdays on Spreaker, YouTube, and so on. So our channel is Trampled Underfoot Podcast on YouTube. You can find us on Spreaker, as well as our own website, which is trampledunderfootpodcast.com, and you can catch our past episodes there. Plus, we've got so many things. Plus, we have our Facebook site, and you could go check us out there and see the things we post, which usually connect with what we talk about on the show. So that's 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live show. And then in the mornings, we have our broadcasts over on Spreaker and our website. And we're also sponsored by
Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media, your one-stop website shop. If you're looking to start a website, you want to boost up your online presence, maybe you'd like to develop a web store, you have items of your own that you make and want to sell, get out to the general public, Steve is your man. If you have maybe an idea for a t-shirt, baseball cap, something to that effect, Steve can hook you up with an on-demand printing service. They'll take care of everything. They will fulfill the order. They will ship the order worldwide. You just sit back and watch the orders come in. That's harnealmedia.com. Check out Steve, the sponsor of the Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com website.
Right. Listen, I it was a nice walk through, different conversations, and I think that we had a great time. We're gonna have an after show, so stick around if you want to have your comments on full display there, and us,
Did.
Yeah. So for everyone, have a nice week. Enjoy, be safe, and we'll catch you here next Tuesday.
Take care. All right. Let's see. Hey, Harju finally showed up. What's
All
up
right.
with that? Okay, let me go back up here and see if I can't find some comments to play around with. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We do have some fun. Rick French says, no hints on tonight's topics. We don't know what we're going to talk about. I can't give hints about what the topics. So, that's why I came back and commented that we were thumb wrestling about it now, because it's like we get together on this hangout here in StreamYard, and it's like, okay, you got anything? No. Have you got anything? No. And then we talk a little bit, and it'll make us both kind of go, oh, okay, well, I know. I can think of something to talk about. And then that's how we do it. So,
yeah, a lot of it is a natural flow. As you guys can tell, we're naturally flowing on the topics. And, it's a little get together happening, which is, but it's not like, there have been occasions where we have a thing that we're itching to talk about. Maybe current events or some sort of anniversary on some sort of band that we just can't help. And sometimes we miss those. Actually, more often than not, we miss certain sort of key moments, because we're being very off the cuff, let's say. But I look at it like it's, like a natural flowing conversation,
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. That's it's 100% spontaneous. I was telling Eloy in the back in the quote unquote green room that I'm starting to think maybe I should do a little bit more show prep for this, because we do end up falling back on a couple of topics when we don't have anything else to talk about. So if I have a couple of topics kind of set off to the side, maybe we can explore them a little bit. But that's the extent of show prep for this, because we want to be spontaneous. If I want to know his opinion on something, I don't want to ask him about it before we go live, because I want his honest opinion right now as it's coming in. I don't want a rehearsed or canned response.
Yeah, the whole idea is it's to be natural, warts and all.
Mm-hmm.
Just that natural sort of back and forth. But I will say, Mark, and obviously you remember, we did brainstorm way back years ago when we started this, because we've been doing this for like about 2.5, 3 years at this point.
Next month will be our 3rd anniversary.
That's an incredible thing, I mean, that's an incredible feat, because it's a lot of shows, a lot of different directions we've gone. But early on, when we were pondering all this, what we fleshed out was we'd have a talk sort of show, but then we'd add additional sort of skits, like, let's say Mark has been into reaction videos and that whole dynamic, and I kind of dug that idea. And our initial conversations were, we both like music. That was a big selling point for doing this. And we thought, well, we could do reaction videos, us, and that would be freaking awesome. And I still think that would be freaking awesome, except for the problem of people, depending on who you are, luck of the draw, you could get, your channel could get completely, demonetized, whatever the word is, confiscated, ranked down.
Yeah.
And we're not, and so with that sort of hovering over our heads, we figured, so we did do adaptations of the whole reaction. We did a Led Zeppelin documentary, but we did it. It's in our channel if you go back and see. So we tried a few things, reactions to different topics and so on.
We did do one reaction video to the Kyle gas band.
Glass or gas?
I thought it was glass.
I don't know, but I got gas.
The Kyle Glass band. He's half of Tenacious D, and with Jack Black, and they did a cover of Steely Dan's "Reelin' in the Years."
Yeah,
in the back of a van, and it was a cool video. I loved it, and we recorded it and we posted it. But I didn't like the video. I loved the tune, but I didn't like our video, because basically it was me sitting there watching this video.
And I thought you were very critical.
We talked about it afterwards, but I just kind of sat there and watched it and listened to the music. I dug it. It was great, but it was a boring video to watch. And that was my problem with it.
You see, well, we don't want to get into, because I have my own thoughts on it, and I would have to do the whole idea. So I'll just say this one thing. The whole concept of watching a reaction video and then having a person, you don't have to be on, and the whole idea is people are entertained by the actual video, but they can also sort of break their attention and look at the guy watching the reaction and see the reaction. And so if you get my point.
And I agree with you, but that was just it. If somebody is reacting as they're listening, that's one thing. But I wasn't animated at all. I was a bump on the log. I wasn't even bopping with the music. I was just sitting there. I was focused on the song. And I watched that, and it was like, dude, did your camera freeze up? Are you okay over there? did somebody give him a nudge? Is he all right? You know, and I just it was cringy for me.
I'm
Now,
sure.
after the tune was over and we were talking about it,
Yeah.
completely different subject. I just wasn't animated at all, and I didn't like that video.
Yeah, well, okay, so fair enough. I just, so in my opinion, you know, that was our first go at that,
Yeah.
and it's not like, but as one gets comfortable with a certain sort of little format,
Mhm.
maybe there's improvement, maybe not.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't just totally throw out the baby with the bathwater,
No, I wouldn't either.
but we did come across the main issue, in my opinion, which is they can knock you down for
Yeah.
like the copyright, and who wants that whole
Right.
torture? You know
Well,
what I'm
not
saying? So
only that, but there's a million reaction video channels out there, and
yeah,
that just isn't us. Now, we also tried some short snippets where we would get into a hangout and I would ask Eloy a question and I'd record it.
yeah,
And I would ask him a question. And these videos are back. What you go way back to the first page of our site here on YouTube.
yeah,
I asked you one time, you're exploring this old abandoned house. It's run down, it's creepy. No utilities have been turned on in this place for years. It looks it. But you're walking through this house and all of a sudden the phone rings. Do you answer it?
right,
We did a video on that.
yeah,
We did a video on how you would spend $5,000 in, I think it was 5 minutes or something like that. What would you
yeah.
buy? You had a certain amount of time to spend $5,000. So we did little videos like that. Then we did a 50th anniversary mini documentary on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, we worked
And
hard on that. You know.
yeah. And I took little stingers, little brief little snippet conversations out of some episodes and put them together with our faces and very crappy graphics. And we tried that. And then we just decided, you know what? We have more fun just sitting here talking with each other. And time also became a factor because we just didn't have the time to devote to it. As for monetization, we're not monetized.
Right.
We can't monetize. We have the watch time. We don't have the subscribers. We're sitting at 385 subscribers. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's about all there is to it. We have to have 1,000. We have the watch time though. We do get the watch time.
I mean, but again, we do it because we enjoy doing it, and it's a way to continue our connection and spend some time and stuff and talk about this and that. So let's get through some of these things before we go too long.
Jim Dockrell wants to know, has Eloy been listening to any Dire Straits yet?
No, I've not. And every now and then Mark will send a clip or someone will send, and I'll watch the clip, but I've not sat back and listened to a whole album.
That brings up a whole new different thing. We were just talking about reaction videos. There is one tune, well, there's a couple, but there is one tune in particular that I would like to get your reaction of. And that's Mark Knopfler, the lead singer and guitarist for Dire Straits. It's a song of his called What It Is. I would love to get your reaction to that because I think you would dig the hell out of it. I really do.
All right.
But,
we'll do that. Hell yeah.
Maybe one day. Let's see. Let me go back up here. That was just one that came in real quick. And folks talking about the overpowering aromas. They make perfume with skunk juice. Do they really, Greg? Do they really?
It's a carrier, right? It's what's the word that they use? You have the actual, like in aspirin, you have the actual chemical, and then you have the agent that it's I don't even have the technical
something like that, the carrier for it.
The carrier, but there's an actual word for it. I can't remember now.
People talking about Aqua Velva, Old Spice. Jim Bashir's is on an Irish Spring pick. Oh yeah, you remember the Irish Spring commercials with the laddie and the lassie, and Sean, if you cut up another bar of soap, Musk and patchouli oil. Yeah, that's and Steve wants to know, is that this week's title, You Can Eat Off Your Butt? No, probably not.
With proper hygiene. It should read, you can eat off your butt as long as you have proper hygiene.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Rick French has a great point here. Too many people never understood the difference between applying aftershave and cologne. Aftershave gets splashed on if you want to set your face on fire. Yes.
Yeah.
Cologne gets dabbed on. Yes.
That is correct.
And what is it with women, especially older women? When you get older, I think your sense of smell goes, because what is it with mainly older women wearing perfume to where your eyes water? It's like, oh my God, lady, that perfume smells great, but you didn't have to wear the entire bottle at once. I don't get that. What is going on? Man. Anyway. Let's see.
Between the perfume and the purple hair, you feel like you're in a 60s psychedelic party.
Steve Nealon, Harneal Media, says you always carry a handkerchief because you're lazy. They're lazy. You always carry a handkerchief because your lady will need it when you make her cry, which you are bound to do. Boy, don't you just want to talk to his exes? I'm not going to say that. Let's see. Jim Bashir's first half of the 1900s, handkerchiefs were mandatory. Yes, handkerchiefs and hats. Everybody wore a hat. And when did hats go out? Because you watch the old movies, everybody wore a fedora or a bowler hat or something like. Everybody wore a hat, and then all of a sudden they were just gone.
George Carlin, I don't know if you've ever watched his skits. He's got a skit, and you know he throws out the curse words. Yeah. He has one about like, and who are these? I'm totally paraphrasing, but whatever. This is after show, but he said, and who are these?
Holes, yeah,
who wear freaking cowboy hats. What are we at a Halloween party? I mean, do I step out? And he goes through a whole skit where he actually makes it sound convincingly ridiculous, because he says, I mean, who is this guy wearing a cowboy hat? I mean, and he goes off and off. But if you ever watch that skit, I mean, it does make the whole cowboy thing. I mean, we're not in the mid 1800s, folks.
Well,
you know,
Gallagher does a similar routine about cowboy hats and how the cowboys are wearing the wrong hat. This is not for cowboy work. What's the first thing a cowboy does when he gets on a horse? Is the horse jumps, the hat flies off. The last thing he does is get off the horse and pick up his hat, because it don't fit cowboy work. Yeah. This is not the kind of hat you want to be wearing riding a horse under trees, ducking branches. Cowboys should wear football helmets. You know. Yeah. Okay, I agree with that. That sounds good. Let's see. Greg must be talking about me with the talcum powder thing, because he says, now I smell like Grandpa. No, Grandpa smelled of Aqua Velva, Men in Skin Bracer. On the other side, he smelled like Old Spice and pomade, the hair gel. Did your dad do the hair gel thing?
My dad never did the hair. He would just splash water, comb it, and then as it dried, it took whatever, you know, because you do the parting off on the one side of the head, which we all do for generations. Right. And but there was no
Grandpa did the hair gel. One of them was called Dippity Doo, and another one, I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't Brill Cream. But it was a hair gel that he'd put in his hair, and he'd comb it over and slick it down, and it was like 30 coats of hand rubbed lacquer, man. It shined for the whole damn day. That's awesome. That stuff dried, and it could be a 40-mile-an-hour wind and not a hair would move.
That's the style, dude.
It was helmet head, man. He combed it back, parted it, then combed it back, and then he would do this thing with his hand where he would push some forward.
Oh, because he would have
he had that little bill up front, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost
I'm
like
all
a
about
baseball
that.
cap.
That I don't have that no more. I don't know. I've got some thinning going on, but I used to have that sort of that look as well with the front, or maybe I still, you could tell that it's got like the little
It was not quite a pompadour. It didn't come up, but it was just kind of a shove forward a little bit, you know.
Would you consider that a pompadour?
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay.
That's what Elvis would use, right? The pompadour?
Yeah. Elvis had a pompadour. Yeah. Linda says that Spanish thing on the head that you couldn't think of on the bar of soap, it's called a mantilla.
Mantilla.
Yeah.
I've seen like in documentaries, but I'm sure that it's it's a just for special occasions and this and that.
Rick French says, I have one bar of soap and a bottle of shampoo on the shower shelf. My wife has 3 different kinds of bar soaps, liquid soaps, bottles of shampoo, moisturizer, and Lord knows what else.
Wow.
I think it's a law, Rick. I think it's a law. Yeah, I have a bar of soap. Whatever shampoo she buys, that's what I use. I mean, I'm not picky. I'm very basic.
You don't wait a second. No. That's it. I'm gonna put my foot down on this one. I gotta ask you this question.
Okay, go ahead.
You're trying to tell me with a straight face, live across the world from
in front of God and everybody.
I'm building up.
Oh, okay.
You're trying to tell me that you do not spend at least 45 to 55 minutes in the shampoo aisle investigating the actual ingredients and sort of, delegating and thinking, well, maybe this one, you don't do that.
I'm going to say yes to half and no to the other half. Yes, what? I spend 45 minutes in the shampoo aisle, but that's usually looking around the place because I'm waiting for her to pick the shampoo. I don't care. It all is going to it's going to take the junk out of my hair. It's going to leave my hair behind. What happens after that, I don't give a damn. Because I'm going to get out, I'm going to comb my hair and let it dry. And then that's it.
When I look at shampoos, there have been times where I'm like, oh, well, but I'm going to be honest with you. There's certain products that my main concern is the financial proposition.
Oh, sure.
I'm looking, $1 for shampoo. I'm there.
Yeah. Now, I have to back up and regroup and admit to one thing. I do prefer the shampoo with conditioner because my hair does get long enough to where if I don't get the conditioner in it, you get a knot and you're like, Well, with the shampoo and conditioner, it doesn't do that. But she knows that and she feels the same way. She buys shampoo with conditioner. So, I mean, I don't have to make any decisions. There are very few decisions I have to make in life. I live a very charmed life, But as far as me going down the shampoo aisle and deciding which shampoo that's not in my job description. No, I drive. I run the products over the scanner at the self-checkout. I put it in the bags, and that's it. We go. I don't even push the cart. I don't even push the buggy. She's in charge of where we go. I just follow along and reach stuff that she can't. That's it. I make very few decisions. Let's see here. Rick French said, haven't seen penny loafers in years. Then Greg, the fun guy, says no more pennies in Canada.
That's true.
So you have what now? Nickel? Okay, he later on he said now they would be nickel loafers. And Linda says penny loafers were girls' shoes. Update your search history because there are lots of men's penny loafers out there. Jim Dockrell says, I guess there's no way Eloy would remember wingtips then. Did you ever wear wingtips?
I don't even know what you've mentioned it before. I don't even know what that is.
Okay. You had different styles. have you ever seen the black and white leather shoe?
Yeah.
Where the toe is black and it's got that shape.
Mhm.
It follows the toe, obviously, but then
Mhm.
it's got that kind of a wing type shape. Those are wing tips. They can be black and white. They can be all black. They can be all brown.
Okay.
But they were separate pieces all sewn together. Those are called wing tips.
Okay, so I have seen them, but no, I never.
You never had any?
No.
No. Okay. I had some when I was younger. Really younger. Oh, let's see. Jim Bashir says they called them gym shoes. I had gym shoes, but they were for PE specifically, and they were kept in my locker at school. And you go in, the PE teacher would say, "Gym shoes." Okay, everybody knew to put on the gym shoes. We were going to be inside the gym on the floor in there, and they didn't want any street shoes or outdoor sneakers on their gym floor.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Lots of agreement on the hiker boots. Moccasins were only cool if you made them from a kit from scratch. If you were a girl, girls liked the moccasins that went way up to just below the knee and had all the fringe on top. The guys, we had the low moccasins that had the fringe right around the ankle. But I never got to wear moccasins. Mom wouldn't buy them for me. But I didn't get desert boots either for the same reason. She knew I'd wear them out. Let's see. Greg says I had squaw boots back in elementary school. That's what the girls called the boots that went all the way up to just below the knee. So if you wore squaw boots, good on you.
Dude, and if you have pictures, post them over on our Trampled Underfoot podcast page on Facebook.
Rick French says, sure sign that I'm getting old. I started wearing suspenders for comfort in the workshop. Now I want to wear them for everything. So much more comfortable than a belt. I will agree they're more comfortable than a belt, especially if you're trying to, carry stuff on them and what have you. But for every day, I'm still thinking bib overalls, man. I just haven't got any yet. That don't mean I won't, but let's see. Greg Snow Crusher said, I only wore suspenders with chest waders. Well, yeah, but I mean, come on. You had to. Jim Dockrell says, when you get to 70 years old, your belt is supposed to be at nipple height. I think it's a law, man. I don't know.
What do you think the little holes in the belt are for?
Well, yeah, but you got to breathe, man. I don't get it. I don't get it. Let's see. Jim Dockrell, the worst work boots I ever owned were Doc Martens. Sole fell off in a couple of weeks.
Damn.
I'm going to be honest with you. The worst work boots I ever owned were Carolina logging boots. And that was because the lining on the inside, on the heel, wore out, and then I had the seam. And that sucker wore out in about 6 months.
Holy smokes.
And it wore through that inner liner, it wore through the foam, and then I had that seam from where they sewed together at the heel, right on the back of my heel. And I hated them. They were the worst logging boots, the worst work boots I ever had. The best work boots I ever had were Army issue combat boots. I mean, I've still got combat boots in the closet. I need to get them out and polish them up.
In case of the zombie apocalypse, you will be properly ready.
Jim Dockrell says jean jacket and jeans, the Canadian tuxedo. Yeah, well, it spread to down here too, because I mean, I was the denim cowboy, I tell you what. Rick French wants to know where'd it go? It just jumped. Wow, where'd it go? It jumped. I wonder what my Mark Lindsay t-shirt will be worth in the future. Probably the same it's worth right now. What you paid for it. So let's see.
You can't see. I want to. Obviously, we're in jest here, but I honestly want to suggest that, according to the Antiques Roadshow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just pottery and frickin' glazed. No, there's all sorts. So you don't know 50 to 60 years from now, Antiques Roadshow 2080 something or whatever. This is an authentic 2021 Mark Lindsay T-shirt, and these are very rare on the market because of the great woodworking issues that occurred, where now these are rare. You don't know.
I do know, because somebody's going to confuse it for that guy with Paul Revere and the Raiders, and another person is going to go, who? And that'll be it.
You don't know.
Speaking of which, on Twitter 2 days ago, somebody added me to their list of classic rock and rollers.
Nice.
And I had to go in and tell them, I'm not that Mark Lindsay. Sorry, wrong number.
That's hilarious, dude.
It is. It is. And now Twitter has been suggesting I follow this person ever since. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to follow them. They made a mistake. I'm not that Mark Lindsay.
Not to go down this thing, but Twitter, we know the issues that haunt different sites and this and that. You could say something that's totally benign, and all of a sudden,
yeah.
You have stories about that, but so Twitter is so dirty, and the formatting and the whole just complete strangers, just jumping on other people's backs. Maybe rightly so or not, but the whole concept is sort of like this brutal sort of like mob situation. I've not been on Twitter for ages, and all I do there is post woodworking and music stuff and this and that. But it's like, I don't know, there's something about it that's very in your face. Like, yeah. I don't like it at all.
Now, there is one great thing. Twitter is absolutely brilliant for this. It's a snapshot in time of how people are using the language. And we've talked about this before. We did an entire episode about it.
It has to be horrible.
And no, it's fun. It can be a lot of fun.
Okay.
Because you have that search function and you can go in and, like, we did a episode called, what was it called? It's a doggy dog world from the get-go.
Yeah.
Because people are using the phrase, it's a doggy dog world, not dog eat dog.
Right. Doggy dog.
Doggy dog. From the get-go, not from the get-go.
They use all of them together wrong?
They use individually, they use them wrong.
Okay, because
we put them together and made a title.
Okay, but you never came across like both instances together.
I haven't looked for both instances.
Okay, because the moment you find that, because we titled it jokingly, but the moment you find that whole syntax, that is an accomplishment of epic proportions, because that is pretty brutal.
And just a couple of weeks ago, we titled one "Stone Houses Are Acceptable," EXCEPTABOWL, because I found that being used out in the wild instead of acceptable. Yeah. It's accept a bowl. Now
that's crazy.
You can blame autocorrect for some of this stuff.
You're right. I didn't take that into account.
But not all of it. So what I like to use it for is when I hear weird things like that, like intensive purposes, I'll go over to Twitter and I'll search for intensive purposes and find people using it.
And they do.
But it's one of those things I can kind of forgive it, but kind of not. It's one of those sayings that you've heard a million times, but you've never seen it really in print, so you don't really make that association. Like a bull in a china shop. Well, people, a bull in a china shop refers to something chaotic that could cause a lot of damage.
Right.
people have swapped it around now and they say a bowl in a china shop, meaning something that is fragile or something that's boring.
I actually used or thought that it was a bowl, the one with the bowl, not a bull. But
Mhm.
if you think of the word bull and bowl, it's not written, but
It's easy to confuse one with the other.
right. And because a bowl in a china shop itself would be the item that would be broken from if a bull were in the china shop. And so they kind of coalesce because it sounds phonetically, but at the same time it has the sort of, it's a wildly different, but it has the
But
sort
it
of
makes sense.
right, but some things don't.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. From the gecko, where the heck would that come from? But you can see
It's good.
the mental image of a bull running through a china shop. You can get the mental image. It's chaos. There's going to be damage and destruction.
Yeah.
But you can also get the image of a bowl in a china shop that's fragile.
Yeah.
And there are people who are referring to athletes who get injured quite often as, oh my God, he's like a bowl in a china shop. You just wonder what's going to break next. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I get it. Or you got other people saying a bowl in a china shop because that's exactly what you would expect to find in a china shop. It's boring.
Right.
It's mundane. Yeah, okay, it's a bowl in a china shop.
It has another purpose.
So I get, and that's how language evolves, and I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun.
Yes.
But I can't sit there with a clear conscience and say he's right, she's wrong, he's wrong. Because for their context, every one of them is correct.
I was going to use the same set of words in the context, and so with the context, it could apply, and there's leeway for create either knowing or unbeknownst to the person using it. There's leeway for creativity of placing a certain saying in a certain context, and so there's this whole thing, and that's what language. And if enough people accept from the get-go, if enough people say it's from the get-go, then by consensus, we now have introduced
exactly.
Yeah.
Because common usage is the final arbiter as to who is right and who's wrong. And if people are going to call that stiff coffee drink that you get in Italy espresso and not espresso, then that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
There is no letter X in the word espresso, but half of the people that say that word in English are going to add that X in there.
Yeah, I've done that a lot with espresso. Hey, let me have an espresso. It's espresso.
Yeah.
But, frankly, the correct thing is espresso. But frankly, the message got conveyed because the person was inside a coffee shop
and he wanted it fast.
Right. And so then that whole thing, and if enough people do that, which they have been doing, it could occur where both are acceptable, because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And eventually one might just win out, but now it's become a situation. Yeah, it's dynamic. Language is dynamic. It's a fine line from saying a bunch of things that make no contextual sense and saying something that's sort of off, and something that's a little bit not risque, but a little bit, you're kind of being dangerous with the wordplay, and you're saying things that are. So there's different situations, that can and do go on with language usage.
Well, but And that's the whole thing. Final use, popular usage is the final arbiter. It's the way the most people pronounce it or write it or spell it is the way it's going to be accepted.
I mean, at
And
the end of the day,
now, do you watch or have you watched Futurama? I think I asked you this once before.
you have, and I never watched it. It looked like something out of the Muppets or something to me.
Well, it's made by the same guy that does The Simpsons, but
Okay.
There's a couple of recurring themes there, a couple of running gags, and one of them is everybody. They don't use the word ask; they all say axe, and they
Oh,
even tease Fry, the guy who is from 1,000 years in the past,
yeah.
about that funny way you pronounce the word axe. Because he says ask instead of axe. And also another recurring running gag is they never use the word Christmas. Only Fry uses the word Christmas. Everybody else calls it Xmas.
Oh, that's funny.
That's just what it's called. It's no longer, because in one of the first episodes around that time of year, he says something about Christmas, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Oh, you mean Xmas?
And that's a good little, because you could see how that could happen. Given enough time into the future and enough generations of people using a particular roundabout, the X for the Christmas, you could see how all of a sudden that would become could become the standard.
Mm-hmm.
I can totally, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
But it's happening now, but on a smaller scale. Like, for instance, here we talked about this, I think, once briefly in an after show. We have the acronym at the end when you're typing somebody in a post or in a comment or something, and you want to indicate humor, you use LOL.
Right.
And here, everywhere that I've ever heard anybody even try to pronounce that, that's what they say, LOL. You get over into the UK and they pronounce that lol. They'll actually say the word lol. And it's starting to spread. It's starting to come over here. I've heard it over here a couple of times, not much.
Lol, dude, lol.
Lol, yeah.
So it's jumped off. It's freaking jumped off, and we have to understand that this is what happens with language. I mean, but it's jumped out of the screen, out of the typing world into real life, where people are now in input using that. It's an amazing thing, dude. That's
when I first got my very first word processor, it was Corel Word Perfect. And if I wrote the word towards, he walked towards the light.
Yeah.
It would correct me and say toward. Don't put the S on there.
Okay.
Now it doesn't.
Because now it's towards.
None of the other word processors do it.
Huh.
So even something that simple has changed just in the last 20 years.
I would, if I were to read, but then again, I'm not an English major but if I were to read and he walked towards the light, I would just as readily accept it as toward. But now that you mention it, something I would never have thought until you just mentioned it, I would assume, I would consider that toward the light is the proper thing. Towards, it's irrelevant. The S, it's not necessary.
That's not the proper use of that word.
Yeah, it's not necessary. It's not. Yeah.
Well, irregardless.
Another one that's totally.
It's funny. I said that just as Rick French's comment about regardless versus irregardless. Yeah, it's a double negative. It's not that. And yes, I am that guy. The sign should say 10 items or fewer, not less.
That one is one that I'm less. But again, it's not like I have this English major. Yeah. 10 items or fewer.
Fewer is a quantity,
and less
is a volume. You can have less water in your glass. You can't have fewer water in your glass. You
I
can have
understand.
fewer ice cubes in your glass, but you can't have less ice cubes.
I see what you're saying. So the proper thing, but that's long gone now.
Oh yeah,
As far as
I've given up the fight on 10 items or fewer.
right, and it doesn't. I don't know if it's that we. I don't know if it rolls off the tongue better as well. But 10, and by the way, that should not be the measuring stick for. But 10 items or less. I don't know if it's just that I'm adapted to it, but if we would have used 10 items or fewer. Would I have thought, man, that's a little strange rolling off the 10 items or fewer. 10 items or less sounds
But
right.
if you saw it in every store, 10 items
You-
or fewer, you would think 10 items or less was weird.
Yeah. Most likely that's the case.
Yeah.
So it's just
So
a matter
it's
of this is
common
what
usage.
it's common usage. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. See, like I said, I'm that guy. I'm that word nerd. No, I don't know the origin of every word. No, I don't study the English language as much as I used to. But I do still like those little things, those little freaky things and quirks and changes in the way it evolves. You know?
Yeah. Not to worry though, Mark, because I am sure that in the future, like given enough time, say the difference between us now and the people back, say 200 years ago, the way they talked, I don't like stamp this, but 200 from now, we probably sound quite antiquated.
Oh, definitely. And he's using Twitter as an scapegoat.
No, I'm saying in our actual linguistic, in our actual, what's the word? In our speech pattern and
Yep.
sort of dialect maybe, or
Yeah.
I don't know what the word would be, but
Well,
we would sound to them like
well,
these people were ancient.
well, think of how your grandfather spoke. Just your grandfather. I know how both of my grandparents spoke, and it was a little bit different. They would say words that I would never consider of you having used in that context. It was a different vocabulary.
I can't.
You don't have to go back that far to find differences in vocabulary. And I don't mean just slang. I mean just common everyday normal speak,
You know what? And I know that we've gone overboard here, but I got to tell you this because it's so perfect within this thing, and it's such an interesting thing. Have you noticed when watching on YouTube old footage from the 60s and 70s and listen to the dialogue between people and not just movies? So put movies to the side for half a moment, but like, let's say game shows or some sort of interview.
Yeah.
And you hear people's conversation and the choices that they're making in order to express the ideas that they're sharing. It's an incredible thing to listen to watch, because it's so different than how people engage and back and forth nowadays in parallel, in like fashion with interview shows and whatnot.
Right.
It's an amazing thing.
Go back and watch some of Groucho Marx, You Bet Your Life, from the 1950s.
I've seen a few where he makes his off jokes and this and that, but he gets serious in some instances.
And they're just talking about this, that, and the other. And yes, they had heavier filters there. There were certain topics they didn't discuss, and there were certain words they didn't use. But their whole manner of speech, the timbre of the voice, the mannerisms that they use, it's completely different. Completely different. Of course, you also got to figure the cameras there. Half of them were scared out of the wits if they weren't, used to being on camera.
That's true.
But still, just the mannerisms, the way they talked, the whole thing.
Let's add what Greg said in the comments as a final little thing, because I find it interesting. I don't know about. So Greg Snow Crusher says, contractions came about in the last 100 years. I didn't know that.
I would. I don't know. I don't think I agree with that, because I think they were being used in Middle English and Old English, and
Oh, like whilst
in Gaelic, Irish Gaelic, and Scots Gaelic. They used contractions a lot, or instead of over. Things like that. And it would be written out O''er.
Pirates are catch you later, folks.
The West Country accent.
So
Get
then
off of my lawn.
So contractions.
I can't say no, but I can't say yes either. I'd have to look into it, but I believe they're older than 100 years.
I do know that in my research now, thinking about it, and regardless, it's an interesting thing, and I'm sure that he could expand on what he's saying, but I can tell you that written documents, I don't, because there's also, is it spoken you're saying, or is it well, go ahead.
Contractions in some form of English date back to Old English 450 AD to 1150 AD.
Okay, so that kind of closes the chapter on that one, Greg.
They did use contractions.
Yeah, well, in written, like, let's say, in when I look at church records and this and that, and it's in Spanish, but just just the same, they would abbreviate a lot of things. Like when you're reading, and I had to sort of get my brain around that. Oh, they're saying Fernandez, but they're just using the key letters to represent Fernandez. That's why it looks like just a little thing, and so a lot of stuff like that. I'm curious to know where did Greg come with that one? With that one from.
It may have been taught in school, because I was taught a lot of things like that in school. Let's see. Like I before E except after C. That's no longer taught, but I was taught that in school. But it's no longer taught now, because technically, actually, there are more words that have the E, or that have the I before E after the C, than there are that don't.
There's a big, we've progressed, let's say, or regressed, or what. So you no longer say penny for your thoughts.
Nope.
Because what's the temptation in that?
Yeah, really.
In any event, listen, guys, we enjoyed it, and I guess it's time to enjoy the rest of your week. And are you ready to go, Mark?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Irregardless, we'll catch you guys later.
Right.
Peace.